Hi, Community Connections members. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight for the latest episode of Community Connections Now. And I could not be more thrilled to be here with someone I consider a very dear friend. I've looked up to Alaina Reaves since really the first time I ever met you, Alaina, which was at the Netroots conference in New Orleans. And
Yeah.
I just vibed with you like from the first time ever. I adore Alaina. And I'm so excited to introduce her to all of you. And this is going to
Hi.
be a fun conversation. Yeah, in a minute, she's going to tell you all about herself, but I get to brag on her first. So, number one is this is such a fun conversation because I just feel so at home with Alaina, and I know all of you will as well. And right now, what Alaina is doing is she is the political director for the Clayton County Democratic Party in Georgia, as well as being an elected member of the Democratic National Party. And she's just on the front lines in Georgia. So what I want you to do is I want you to follow her, check her out. Like I see your photos all the time, Alaina, and I'm like, wow, like Alaina is in the thick of it. And I love it. And then I get to text her later and hear all about it. So with that, tune in. It's going to be a great show. And I'm going to kick it over to Alaina and let her tell us what she's been doing.
Well, Star, thanks so much for that introduction. I'm so excited for you and the community connections community that you're growing. You're also such a kindred spirit, and we've kept in touch. And I will never forget my first trip to Arkansas and how amazing it was that everyone said that my first stop in Arkansas was Fayetteville and not Little Rock. And I will never forget that.
So for my Northwest Arkansas peeps on here, Alaina has only been to Northwest Arkansas, and she helped me lead a women's political training there. And you were so captivating. And like, I'm jumping in again, but I love her, and I'm going to do this. But like her training, like I've been to so many women's political trainings, and like Alaina did this storytelling training, and it was just you were so wonderful, and it just drew in the crowd. And you have fans still in Northwest Arkansas, Alaina, and they reached out to me for this, and they were like, Alaina Reaves is coming on the show. Like, when is it? When is it? So you have a fan club here in Arkansas.
Well, that's incredibly flattering. And hi, Northwest Arkansas, hi, Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Star. I learned from the best. And okay, now I promise I'll talk a little bit about me, because you've done such a great job introducing me. But as Star said, my name's Alaina Reaves. I am a Democratic National Committee woman, one of the Democratic National Committee women for the state of Georgia. I also serve with the Clayton County Democratic Party, as well as being the outgoing or president emeritus of the Clayton County Young Democrats. And sometimes when I feel like I'm giving my introductions, it's almost just like a list of titles. But I also just finished just about 30 minutes ago a board meeting for the Urban Redevelopment Authority for the city of Marl, where I live. I live in Clayton County, Georgia, which is just south of the city of Atlanta. And I like to remind people, if you've ever flown in or out of the city of Atlanta, you have been in Clayton County, because we are home to the majority of the airport.
That I've been there
Yes.
many times, actually.
So you've been to Clayton County if you've flown in or out. So a little bit more about the Democratic National Committee. I think when people hear about the National Democratic Party, they think of the chairman who we just voted in is Jamie Harrison. So as a DNC member, I was one of the over 400 DNC members who were able to vote for not only Jamie Harrison, but I was so proud to be able to vote for Keisha Lance Bottoms as the vice chair of voter engagement, which I believe is a new position and is incredibly exhilarating, considering the election results and the turnout numbers that we had in Georgia. And I think it's fair to say that I live a very partisan life. So I can very frankly talk about the fact that Georgia finally turned blue.
Yeah, you did some amazing work.
Yes, we turned out the vote, and I really want to emphasize for people who brag about, the Georgia election results and the fact that not only did Georgia turn blue for Joe Biden, but 2 U.S. Senate seats with John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, or Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock, but that those were, that was organizing years in the making. Talking to voters, wearing out the bottom of your sneaker soles, going, not just in the metropolitan Atlanta area, but, out in the rural parts of Georgia and Southwest Georgia and Albany and Savannah, Columbus, Augusta, Macon. I feel like if I don't mention all of the major Georgia cities, someone's going to come for me.
Plenty of time. Yeah.
But that was definitely work that was years in the making, and hopefully can be replicated across the country.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, besides you just being a great friend of mine, it's, I mentioned when I see your Instagram and I see everything you're doing, like, I know you're a complete badass and rock star, but like when I hear you also talk about it, I'm always like taken aback, because that's just, you're doing incredible work. And this isn't just like incredible work for Georgia. This is work that is like transforming and will transform our country. Georgia is a front leader in transformation politically. And that's why, as a part of my introduction, I said, Alaina Reaves is on the political frontier of Georgia. And you are. I mean, and I love keeping up with you, because like I was looking at your pictures the other day and you're like at the Capitol, like right in the thick of it. And I was like, that's Alaina I know, doing her thing. And so I love that. And I love that you are talking to the people here in Community Connections about what it takes politically to, like, it doesn't even have to be partisan. It's just a fight for what you believe in, whatever that cause may be, and like wearing the soles of your shoes then. I think people like need that reminder, right? Especially like in COVID. I was in a meeting today and people were like, people don't come to the specific meeting because of COVID and change. And actually, in a minute, we're going to talk about the difference between 2020 and 2021 and what that means.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I want to talk to you, Alaina, and let me know if you feel like you've dove into it enough. But like, what is Alaina's passion? Like, what is that? If you were to put it in a few sentences or more.
It probably would go down to community organizing. Just looking back, I was talking with someone about my high school reunion and just thinking back 10 years when I was graduating, I thought that I was going to be the executive director of a community development corporation, which as a 17-year-old took a lot of explaining to people about what a community development corporation is, how it differs from a nonprofit because it fully provides wraparound services for the entire community. And I always remember that's where I started, with wanting to do work in the community and to help uplift the community. Right. And while I thought I would be more in the nonprofit sector, I actually, when I graduated from Georgia State University with my bachelor's in public policy, I realized that if you craft really well-written legislation that has, the community in mind, then you can actually affect generations for years to come. Yeah. And I think that over the past decade, what I've learned is that you can have the most well-crafted policy, but if you don't have the politicians to implement it, or if you don't elect the leaders who have the willpower to drive that policy and those initiatives forward, then we're just going to become stagnant. So yes, we have to be able to craft quality legislation and quality policy, but you also need to have the politicians that are willing to say, this is what needs to get done to the community. This is what, I'm hearing from my constituents and from the residents, and this is what we need to enact.
Oh, okay. I'm whipping out my Alaina wisdom notebook and I'm writing all this down. Okay. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's about electing the leaders that, are going to make the changes necessary for this country. And yeah, we could go on, but I'm not going to. So I'm gonna stay the course here. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much for the work you're doing in Georgia. But I know your work extends even beyond Georgia, and for being here tonight. So with that, you haven't been on Community Connections before, but for those who are listening, Community Connections started last year very quickly with the onset of COVID. And to be quite honest, it was with my good friend Zenaida, and we were just like girlfriends having a cup of wine. And I was like, I need people around me. Like Alaina knows this, and I'm sure all of you do. I thrive from people and connecting with others. And I was like, I'm going to make this group, and I don't even care if anyone likes it. I can't be quarantined all the time. And so Community Connections was born, and the mission at that time was incredibly simple. And it was just, how are you pivoting? Because we were all in such shock, right? And now the mission, I've rebranded it, and it's still quite simple, but it's a new year. We went through 2020. We're now in 2021. And now the mission is, how are you positively pivoting during COVID-19 through the use of networking and leadership to turn your passions into reality? So I like to reframe that for everybody watching. And that's why I'm having inspirational and amazing leaders like Alaina Reaves on here, because they're going to be giving you top tips on how to do that. So with that, Alaina, how have you been affected by COVID-19, and how have you positively pivoted? And, feel free to talk about how you felt with the inception and where you are now. Cause I don't know about you, but when 2021 hit, I was like, this sucks. We're still here, but I can't live in 2020 anymore. So I pivoted. So how are you doing that? What does that mean for you?
I think one of the first things that I thought about while you were talking was about things that I'm posting on social media, whether Instagram or Twitter. And I had not been posting as much in 2019 and kind of before 2020, but because I wasn't seeing people, or just I was interacting with people a lot differently, turning to social media became a way to kind of, talk about what was going on, and to really include people that I would normally see regularly, and just, find another, outlet. And that probably makes me, I always think I'm a bad millennial because I'm not a big social media person, but
you're not a bad millennial.
Yeah. But I just thinking about 2020, there were a lot of things, just as a political, the first thing that I thought of was, this is going to be a presidential election year, and how is that going to look differently because we're not able to interact with people face to face, but also because the census was really important to me, and I actually was able to do some work surrounding the census in 2020. That became kind of just a pivoting point on how do you do. Sorry, hold on one second. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, right. Well, just looking back to 2020, it was not only the election, but also work with the census. And so just being able to look at how do you do outreach in your community in a completely different way, because not knocking on doors, and actually that's what I was doing in early March. I was helping out with a political campaign, and we were knocking on doors, and we heard the news of COVID, just kind of like as things were unfolding, and we said, okay, let's put on gloves and wear a mask, and we were doing no contact, knocking on doors, just leaving something, just something on the door.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Just learning about how this was really going to affect our lives, and I thought I saw that.
You're coming through a little bit now. I think you might be back. Hello. It just means I get you.
One thing that we learned from COVID was about proper internet connections.
You're good. You're back.
That is.
And I'm living in rural Alaska.
I know.
And
I said that jokingly.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So Alaina and I worked together when I was in rural Alaska, and we learned about this together. So it's all good. We know how to pivot from this. We know how to pivot from it. So you're good though, Alaina.
But I mean, I have a list of things written down, but just even talking about the internet connection was the digital divide, and how COVID-19 affected children, and them being able to have access to the internet or a computer, or if it was multiple children in one household, how are they able to go to classes? And I think that's something that we're still navigating. It's a year later, and we're still trying to navigate what does education look like for children.
You are, and I think strings. I am right there with you as a mother, and I'm with you. I'm gonna let you keep going, but
I don't have kids.
I love where your brain is. I love where your brain is. Yeah.
But I think one of the perspectives that I can talk about for COVID is what it looked like to campaign during COVID-19, and what that looked like, just kind of in the thick of the outbreak, when we really understand how virulent the virus was. Being able to do virtual candidate conversations, where you had candidates join Zoom and just have conversations with potential constituents. Text banking was something that kind of started taking off in 2016. I remember working on the Hillary campaign, and by 2020, I mean, campaigns on every level were doing text banking. And so
they had to
text banking on Zoom. We couldn't do it in person. So you hop on Zoom or WebEx, or I think Zoom is now synonymous with how you connect with people, but phone banking. And I think going back to kind of like the town halls and the candidate conversations, I think that was a really unique way for candidates to be able to reach different communities that they maybe wouldn't have been able to reach before, whether it's not knowing exactly what time you need to schedule something so that people can get off work or pick their kids up from childcare. If you want to tune in to a virtual conversation, put it on, have it up on your phone. And if you want to ask a question, then you can put it in the chat. And it just made it just a little bit more accessible. I mean, there's obviously a trade-off. And I can't emphasize that enough, but it definitely did open our eyes to kind of like different opportunities and different ways to reach people. Just in the past 2 weeks. And actually, I'll back up. So in Georgia, our legislative session is taking place right now. It started the second week in January, and it's going to end probably about the end of March. And so there are a lot of I'll speak frankly. There are a lot of Republicans introducing bills that are trying to roll back voting rights for Georgia. for Georgians. We just had this historic record turnout in the state of Georgia. And instead of being able to embrace more voters, exercising their right, there are all these laws that are introducing restrictions, taking away, absentee voting, no excuse absentee voting, taking away the absentee ballot drop boxes that we have, or just saying that it's going to be illegal to pass out food and water for people who have to stand in line for 4 or 5 hours. Instead of making it easier for them so that they don't have to wait in line, the restriction is now you can't bring them water, bring them snacks.
And to me, so I think everyone can tell by now that Alaina and I are political buddies. And you're diving into, you're very partisan tonight, which is expected and totally okay.
Okay.
What you've dove into is fair voting. I mean, that should not be a partisan issue whatsoever. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Alaina. When I was in Alaska, I saw things happen with voting that I felt could certainly be improved. And just hearing, what you're saying, it makes my stomach turn. I cannot handle the calculated efforts that we have seen happen in the past election and now that are, only exist solely to make voting impossible for people. It's so wrong. So I
wasn't saying that to rile you up. I promise I wasn't.
Yeah,
it's
she revved me up, y'all. She revved me up.
It also riles me up. But
can't stand for that. Yeah.
But in the past few weeks, there have been these town hall sessions all across the state of Georgia, from Augusta to Macon to Columbus, and different parts of the metro Atlanta area, where there have been conversations about these bills and how they're going to affect people's ability to vote in the next election, which in some places of the state, their next elections are later this year.
Yeah.
And I think that during the legislative session that takes place in Atlanta being the capital of the state of Georgia, when you have legislative delegations that are outside of the metro Atlanta area, I think being able to hold, virtual town halls to talk about what's going on at the Capitol and to talk about these voting bills and how it's going to affect those voters just kind of brings that community together.
Yeah.
And so I think that holdover of having virtual conversations and having virtual town halls is something that we should continue to implement and continue to be able to update on what's going on in different parts of the state.
Wow, that was such an excellent answer to that question. Thank you for that, Alaina. And I agree. COVID's been hard for everybody, but I call it, there's a silver lining too. It's redefining everything that we knew to be true: politics, family life, our children's lives, our education system. And I love that you highlighted the value of, what we have all come to adopt in this digital world and the need for digital interaction. And I think you raise an excellent point in politics that the virtual town hall should continue because, not every mom can. I remember when I was a very grassroots community activist here in Arkansas, childcare was difficult and is still very difficult for moms. And COVID did change that for community activists. It made it possible for us to have a baby on our hip and tune in like this. So I love that platform. Definitely keep pushing that and let me know how I can help. So with that, I love to ask this question. The answers are just always, funny, silly, they're inspiring, what have you. But if you could talk to the younger Alaina today, what would be the advice that you would give yourself?
Oh, I would have to tell my younger self to follow my gut and to follow my instinct. I remember, getting ready to graduate college and getting ready to enter into, the real world and the careers and just no one ever explained that when you go into an interview, it's not just the job or the employer interviewing you to see if you're right for that position, but also, you know, is this position, is this employer, is this, workplace a good fit for you? Is it what you want to do? And when you shift that balance of power to say that job wasn't a right fit for me, and to be able to say that that's not, the career move that I want to make, and to be, confident and I'll say authentic enough to say, this is what I want. I'm going to stick true to my values, or just trust your gut. If you're going into whatever life movie, even if it's not going into a job interview, but going into a career move, or deciding to move overseas, or to do something different, just to trust your own gut and trust your own instinct. And if it feels right, even if you can't explain it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most critical thing. Sometimes when you're talking through a decision and you're explaining it to someone, and you really can't articulate, but you just say it feels right, or I can feel it in my gut. Just trust your gut, and trust your instinct, and just stay true to yourself, and say, this is what I want, and you may not understand it, and that's okay, because this is my life, and hold firm to that.
Thank you for that, Alaina. That was excellent advice. I'm going to do a quick plug for a new initiative of Community Connections now.
Yeah.
If that's okay, because it lines with a little bit of what you're talking about. So we have a new initiative called the Everyday Bold Woman, and that kicks off this Thursday with author Claire Brown and founder of Power Women. And then we'll also have the managing director of the Black Women's Business Collectives, the Native Man, the following week. And oh my God, I know. Yeah. And
love her.
And yeah, you don't know it yet, but you're going to be on it too. And we are going to be talking about these matters Alaina is bringing up, and digging into just the everyday bold woman, because throughout my work nationally in women's empowerment, and Alaina's been in it, and others I know, mothers and women, everyday bold mothers and women, just are not getting the attention they deserve, nor the support that they deserve. And so this is going to be a very large initiative, Community Connections, and we are going to be getting funding for mothers and women, and we are going to be spotlighting. I have to say, I like spotlighting over highlighting. We are going to be not forcing, that's the wrong word, but putting these women where they belong in the media, because the media is not paying attention to the everyday bold woman. So stay tuned for that. Sorry to jump in there, Alaina, but I just, there's a lot going on right now. And with what you said, like trusting your gut, women are leaving the workforce in vast numbers, and that's not okay. That's not okay at all. But I'll leave that alone for now. So thank you for that, those inspirational words. And what I want to ask you now, this is always a really fun question, is what's your favorite resource that you used for like motivation, inspiration? What is that for you?
Ooh. People, that's a tough one.
Or books, or
probably my family.
Oh, that's great.
Probably my family.
Yeah.
I have a very large family on my mother's side. And so, and I mean, when I think that I know every occupation, and kind of like the history of what my family members have done, they'll say, call this person because they lived here before, so they can answer this, very specific question about some food or some preparation, or can make some introduction because one day they were at dinner and they met someone, and I always, appreciate talking with different members of my family, because I promise I learn something new in every conversation. And then by the end, I'm thinking, why didn't you tell me that 5 years ago, or 10 years ago? And I could have been asking you all these questions, so much earlier. And so they just always provide, advice and counsel and wisdom, and sometimes just, okay, let me give it to you straight. Which I think you always need those people.
We all need that, right? Like,
yes.
Okay, listen, I love that. I love that. Yeah. That's actually a first. And that's such a blessing that you have a, large family that can shoot you straight. So thank you for sharing that, Alaina. And
yes,
as we start to wrap up, which it's so hard for me to wrap up with you, because I could just sit here and talk, but as we start to wrap up, I know, yeah, we got to get together. But
we do.
Now that the first year of COVID-19 is over, and you may feel like you've touched upon this good enough, but what's next for you in 2021? It's a big question.
2021. Well, I can't help but think for a second. I forgot that 2020 was over.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel that exasperated, just like, 2020 is over. It just kind of felt like 2020 just continued through the month of January without even going into any specific events that happened in January. And I think kind of rounding into the 1st of March, I really have started to feel like, okay, we're in 2021. The COVID-19, the incidences of COVID-19 rates are going down. There's vaccine distribution that's happening. I took my nephew to the park next to City Hall, and I found out that my City Hall is a vaccine distribution site. And just little things are just turning into positive trends. And I can't help but feel hopeful about what 2021 is going to look like. It might also be because the weather is starting to warm up, and I probably shouldn't complain because I'm in Georgia.
Well, Arkansas, yeah, I know.
It was 60 degrees today. So
I know.
Apologies to anyone who has snow.
Like New York viewers, I've been talking to some friends. Yeah, sorry. Well, actually, it was 60 degrees in New York today. So
there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
They're good. So I'm feeling very hopeful about 2021 and what the rest of the year is going to bring. One word, hopeful.
Yay. I love that. Well, this is now when we wrap up, and I love to do this with all my guests because community connections is about the power of networking. That's what it's about. And I started this because I fell in love with community activism at the grassroots level. And that led me to a national career in women's empowerment. And I've worked with very powerful women and leaders all across the country. And I've never underestimated the value of local grassroots activism and then the power of networking. And so that's what community connections, that's like the why behind it and how it came to be. And I want you to think of the guests on these shows. I introduce all of you casually because we're good friends and we are friends on here, and we're all going to work together to fight for what our passions are and our ideas and our initiatives, and we all have them. So with that, Alaina, I would love to ask you your specific call to action to the community connections community. Let us know what we can do to help you, Alaina.
Well, my call to action is less about what anyone can do to help me, but what folks can do, for their own community, just, as you intended with community connections, and that's to get involved.
Yeah.
And I think that does look different for each person individually. My first suggestion is always for folks to run for office. I almost said for women to run for office, but yes, men, you can continue to run for office. But that's, that's one of my call to actions is to get involved in your community. If you want to run for school board or county council or mayor or state representative or governor if you want, but also work on reaching out to your local elected officials and see if there's a community board that you might be interested in, whether it's the library board, whether it's planning and zoning. There are some areas in the country where you can be appointed to your elections board or get elected to your elections board, or if you want to run for dog catcher, there's so many options.
Yeah. And that's what people don't realize is there's so many ways to get involved. As you can tell, the trainer and Alaina and I are coming out, and she and I train very well together as a pair. But you
trained me, so. Well, you did. You trained me.
Well, I don't even know about that. She's a natural. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I kind of dove in there, but just the power of knowing what you're passionate about. What I like to think about, and I think Alaina, you and I have talked about this. I like how you said, whether you're running for city council or state led or governor or Congress or school board or, city commissioner. I was a city commissioner for Little Rock, Arkansas. You want to run what fits your passion. And so I think that's what you were getting at probably too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, actually it was Chelsea Clinton that told me this is if your passion doesn't align with like running for Congress, then don't run for Congress. If your passion aligns with running for school board, run for school board. So I just wanted to add that because I thought it was a great compliment to what you were speaking to. Didn't mean to.
Absolutely. No, I think you that's exactly where I was leading, which is there are so many ways and so many levels in which people can get involved, and they should absolutely, in the wise words of Chelsea Clinton, it should align with your values. But if you don't want to run for office or you don't want to sit on a board, then just get involved however you can. If you become a part of a Girl Scout troop or Boy Scout leader, just get involved in the community. If I can quote anyone, it would be Malcolm Gladwell about the tipping point. And if we want to affect change in our community, then we actually have to put forth that effort in whatever way aligns with our values.
And I'm going to make one correction here, and I'm going to say, in the wise words of Alaina Reaves. Well, thank you, Alaina. And I know just every time, Alaina is someone that every time she speaks, you want to listen. And thank you so much for being on the show tonight. You have done so much for so many, and I know that we only have greater things to see you do. And really, we just really appreciate your time. And I just want my members here to just really take the time to absorb what Alaina had to say tonight, and then follow her on social media, even though she says she's posting less, but she's still there, and I'm sure available if needed, and you can follow her path. So with that, Alaina, do you have any last words before we conclude this episode?
Well, if you're going to send people to my social media accounts, I should probably spell them out. My Twitter handle, and I actually need to update it, but it's Laina, N-A-T-L. It's Laina ATL. And on Instagram, Alaina.Reaves. And my Facebook is the same, Alaina.Reaves. So follow me on any of these platforms. If you live in Georgia, if you want to follow along with what's happening in Georgia, more specifically within Metro Atlanta, I look forward to seeing you on the interwebs.
Well, Alaina, thank you so much just for your light and your energy. And you're just such an inspiration. And I just appreciate your time. Thank you for being on here. And cannot wait to connect with you again. So let's connect with the Everyday Bold Woman. So
thanks, Star. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for having this platform for women and for people to connect. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I love to see kind of like your spirit shine through and just bringing people together.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All right, everyone. That is Alaina Reaves from Georgia. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be announcing our next guest in the next few days. Actually, I'm going to announce it now. It's called State Rep Denise Innett. And Denise is actually my hometown state rep. She served with me when I was president of the Downtown Little Rock Neighborhood Association, and she was my VP. And then when I went to the Clinton School, she became president, and then has just done wonderful things and is now state representative. So she will be with us next Tuesday. And then we're also booked, we were booked for 6 weeks, which is so exciting. And like I said, we're starting this new initiative, the Everyday Bold Woman. It's going to be on Clubhouse, and it'll also be on our YouTube channel. All of this is on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe. I would love to have some subscribers. And then of course you can find us here on Facebook and Instagram as well. So with that, I wish you all a lovely and beautiful night. I hope you all sleep well, and reach out to me. Let me know if you want to connect, if you need networking advice. We touched upon that tonight. I'm really a networking expert, and that's where you're going to really hear some top tips. Especially like with Claire Brown and Zenaida Mann with the Everyday Bold Woman. So I will talk to you all again on Thursday. Have a wonderful night.